Hi, I'm Scott with Archery 360. Today, I'm with John Wert at Lancaster Archery Supply, and he's going to explain to us how to aim a traditional bow. So the first thing you'll notice is there aren't any sights on here. So John, how do you hit stuff with one of these?
Great question. Obviously nothing to aim with except maybe the tip of your arrow. So no sights on the bow, no peep sight, no marks on the bow that would give us an indication of what to aim with. Basically three different categories of aiming with traditional bows are instinctive aiming, gap aiming, and string walking. Instinctive aiming is just like what it sounds like. It's aiming intuitively or not consciously referencing anything on your riser or any part of the arrow tip or anything to aim and shoot the bow. Okay, so just kind of like throwing a ball, you just kind of look, and over time your mind kind of learns that trajectory. It's exactly like that. It's described like shooting a basketball or throwing a football, often described that way. Basically, you're focusing intently on the point you're trying to hit, and your vision and your muscle memory and repetition allows you to point the arrow to that spot that you're focusing on without consciously aligning anything in your sight picture. Okay. Next style of aiming is gap aiming, and gap aiming is where we're sort of referencing the tip of our arrow and we're putting it in correlation or in a point relative to the point we're trying to hit. In 3D target archery, gap aiming is used to hold the arrow tip somewhere under the point we're trying to hit on a close target, and then as we get closer and closer to as we get further away from the targets we're trying to hit, our point becomes closer and closer to that spot on the animal we're trying to hit. Okay. Now, gap shooters typically use a 3-under method, so you can hold, if you had an arrow on here, your arrow would go onto the string, and then you could go one finger above the string, but most gap shooters choose to go 3 fingers underneath. Why is that? Good point, and the reason is a 3-finger under hold on the string moves the tail of the arrow slightly higher on our cheek. So a traditional or bare bow archer has a mid-face anchor, whereas a typical Olympic style recurve shooter has an under the chin anchor. Okay. With a mid-face anchor, if we move from a split finger hold to a 3-under hold, we've effectively raised the tail of the arrow, and what that's doing for our aiming purposes is it's moving our arrow tip closer in proximity to the point we're trying to hit. If I'm shooting split finger, the tip of my arrow may be 20 or 30 inches below the point I'm trying to hit. Okay. I can make that gap smaller by raising the tail of the arrow to a 3-under position, and then I might be shooting a 12-inch gap instead of a 20 or 30-inch gap, which makes gap aiming a little more effective and a little easier to do. That's understandable. So it's kind of like aiming with a fixed pin sight, and you're just aiming off for every distance. It's exactly like that. Okay. That's excellent. So what's the last one? Final way of aiming a traditional bow with no sights is string walking. And string walking is the process of moving your fingers from the arrow down the string to different distances and basically aiming point on, putting the arrow tip on or just under the spot we're trying to hit. At different distances, maintaining one aiming sight picture, but by moving our fingers up and down the string, we're actually allowing us to use that same sight picture at multiple distances. Okay, so it basically turns the point of your arrow into like an adjustable sight, where this would be your sight tape. That's exactly right. I'm wearing a string walking tab. It's a Yoast Pro tab, and it has a graduated scale on the tab, and that scale allows me to choose a mark for different distances for aiming. So I can maintain an aiming sight picture with the tip of my arrow on or under the bullseye by moving my strings, my tab up and down the string. Cool. And so can you string walk with a traditional bow like this one, or
is it better to go with something like the bow you're shooting?
Great question. A lot of archers competing in field archery, where we have a great range of targets that we're shooting at, compete by string walking. But string walking can also be done in hunting bows and 3D bows. They're shorter, so tuning becomes a little bit trickier by string walking on a hunting style bow, but it's done all the time. You can see the bow you've got here has a third knocking locator below the top two locators, and that's used as what appears to be a fixed crawl position.
That's right.
That's moving your fingers down the string about an inch below the arrow nock and allowing you to aim with a smaller gap or a point on gap by moving your fingers down the string. So while you'll see more string walking done on long 68 and 70 inch field bows, you see it often on traditional and hunting bows.
Excellent. Thank you so much for helping us out with that. If you want to learn more about traditional archery, stop into your local archery shop or Lancaster Archery Supply, and we'll see you in the next video.